All right, welcome to the offensive security career panel. I think this is like the first panel for BSides 2021. Thanks everyone for joining. We have like a really great guest. Oh, got feedback. We got a really great guest today. We'll start off by everyone introducing themselves. I'm joined today by Gates, who has worked in this field for a very long time. PW Crack or Bob Weiss, if you're telling people your real name today, also has worked in the field a very long time. A face, well, maybe a voice that you might recognize very well today. IPSec, joined by Nick, and then another offensive guy that's maybe a little bit newer to the field than some of these guys, or Arash Parsa here. And my name is Kyle Fiducia. I will be moderating, keeping Bob in check today. And now I'm going to kick it over to Chris to introduce himself, and we'll go around.
Yeah, Chris Gates. I've been doing this professionally since 2007, so feeling old. Currently red team lead at Robinhood.
And my name is Bob Weiss, or PW Crack. I've been doing this for probably about 14, 15 years, and currently head of information security for OpenVPN.
IPSec, I've been doing this since 2006, actually. So I do a lot of work at Hack the Box, contracting, videos, etc.
I'm Arash. I've been doing this since just 2016. And currently I work as a red team threat hunter at CyberArk.
So I'm barely on camera. I can't say exactly when I started. I'm going to go back and say officially in the offensive realm back in probably 2012. But in the more IT related stuff, back in, I'd say like 2002, something like that, 2001. Yes, in high school. And I'm currently doing freelance offensive security work. So one of the first things I want to do is kind of say, what does your job look like right now? And maybe how you got there, and, just describe your typical day. And if it's important, maybe like how you got to the role you're in now and what you like about it, that sort of thing. Chris?
It's really early to ask such a long multi-part question.
Open-ended question.
What do I do today? So I'm engineering manager for a red team. And so what do I do all day? I go to meetings all day. So
what do you like about
that job? What do I like about that? Okay. I like that it's really on me to plan what's the best thing for the organization and how do we get better from a red team perspective. So I'm very honored and lucky to have, CISO that's given me a lot of control on deciding priorities and how to actually achieve his goals.
Are you remote right now?
Remote. Yep. I've been remote basically the last 15 years. So.
Okay. Yeah. That seems nicer than from some of the jobs we've come from.
Yeah. So I recently just started as the head of information security for OpenVPN. I think the relevant part for this discussion is sort of the process or how I got from red team and penetration tester to that position. I has sort of over time elevated or escalated through being a pen tester and trying to be a good pen tester and trying to make sure that I was technical, hands-on keyboard, eventually becoming sort of a team lead and managing multiple pen testers. And I decided, very as part of that process, it was like, hey, I wanted to get to CISO at some point in time. And I'd always sort of served the role of being the integration layer between the technical people and senior management, going back and forth, being that credible voice, but also always making sure that I was technical and hands-on keyboard and not just being the manager or whatever. And so it's been for me this sort of well-planned.
Are you technical now? Do you see a keyboard in the day?
Yeah. So I am not. That is not my role anymore. So we have an entire ops team.
But this was your goal when you started, or maybe earlier in your career. Is
correct.
To hit CISO.
Yeah, and I always wanted to make sure that that I wasn't just management track, right? That I was that my technical skills were still there, that I still, I'm still reading and still doing hacking sort of in my basement on the weekends, etc. But I want to make sure that I maintain those technical skills, and that I had credibility. If I've got one foot in the technical team and one foot in the management team, I wanted to make sure that I was credible in both areas. And that was something that was sort of very well planned, and sort of a goal of mine. So that wasn't an accident. It was something that I planned for all along.
So what was the question again?
it's well, I mean, for you, we kind of know what your days look like these days, if we watch Hack the Box, or the videos you release on Hack the Box. But just describing maybe what your day-to-day looks like for your role, and maybe how you got there, if it's relevant.
My day-to-day changes a lot. I'm either making machines, validating machines, creating testing scripts, or just in meetings trying to sell the product. It really, probably 5 days a week, I have 6 different things I do. So it's just a crapshoot what it goes. How I got there, I'd probably say like a lot of fake it till you make it. A lot of the videos I just spent, at least at the start, like 12, 15 hours preparing to do that 1 hour of video. So
it's one thing I really like about your videos. You see the mistakes as you go along, and have you, like, you as the observer can watch someone else like realize, okay, mistakes are common. He has to figure stuff out too. I really like that about your videos.
Yeah, it's actually an art, I think, about that part, because those mistakes I'll normally make.
You can't put all of the
beforehand.
mistakes in.
Yes, I pick and choose which mistakes I want to make. Unfortunately, I can't choose the typos. I wish I could eliminate those, but it's a lot of editing work to get rid of that.
Yeah, I've watched some of those. It's like I see the typo, and I go watch you spend like 10 minutes figuring out what was going wrong. I'm like, come on, man, there was a typo. Find it.
Cool. So right now I'm a threat hunter. So what that means is I wake up every morning, I look through the news, I look through intel feeds, and I make hunts for, new APTs, basically. I decide I'm seeing a lot of this tactic in the news lately. I'm seeing a lot of APTs doing this lately. I'm going to try to see if I can catch them based on some EDR hunts, my favorite being.
And what time do you wake up to start that process?
No, God, no. I wish I wake up at 11. Now, these days, I usually wake up around 8. I like to be thorough. I usually go until the afternoon, make sure I catch everything I can while people are working through the day at least. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to jump into rookie mistakes. This is a offensive. Okay, this is that's a good plan. This is an offensive security panel, and our audience is really probably people that are either interested in getting into this field, or maybe are just starting out in this field, have their first maybe SOC job, might be in an adjacent field and want to transition. So I'd say rookie mistakes, maybe things that you learned early on. And I guess I'm supposed to interview myself here too, so maybe I should do my day-to-day, but I'll jump into that. Say rookie mistakes that you've made that other people can learn from. And then I'll answer this question, rookie mistake. This is my first time moderating a panel. So here's my rookie mistake. So my day-to-day, I freelance. So my day-to-day is sometimes waiting for clients, sometimes working with customers to try and set up contracts. Some days it's out breaking my legs kiteboarding while I wait for work to come in. And some days it's trying to find contractors to help me on projects. And other days it's actually just doing the work, pen testing, doing the offensive security work with the clients. And I would say that the most enjoyable part of my job is interfacing with the clients that don't really understand what we in the offensive security field do and how we can help them. I've got a lot of great customers that we've helped a ton just open their eyes to how we work and what value we can deliver improving their security. They're really smart engineers. I think we've all worked with really smart engineers that just don't know the security ramifications of certain things. And when you introduce that to them, it's really eye-opening that, you know, someone would take that mindset on attacking their system. And to me, that's the most fun, is like introducing that concept to these like really smart people, and that just kind of click for them and be like, okay, I just had so many great ideas on how we can protect our systems in the future. And that's the fun part for me. And then I'll do a rookie mistake since I'm supposed to be first. My rookie mistake was probably thinking I knew a lot more than I do. And I think every single year or day that I spend in this field, especially working with people like the guys on this panel, I learned so much from them, working for them, from working with them, interacting with them, and going to these conferences that I cannot wait to be live again. Just learning so much from these, you realize how much you don't know, how much there is to learn, and how important the community is to your career, your growth. So for me, I would say probably the rookie mistake was not getting engaged in the community earlier. Arash?
I would say my rookie mistake is just information overload. At the beginning, there was so much. I thought I need to learn it all instead of just, taking it in and having fun with it as it went. Once I started to actually enjoy it, I started to realize I'm actually learning more.
I think probably the biggest rookie mistake I had starting out is like lack of documentation and being afraid.
Have you fixed that?
Yeah, I have. And also like being afraid to like admit when you screwed up something. There's been
that's an important one that I think we all have to learn.
Especially like when you do pen testing or red team, there are times you're going to crash a service, and most of the time you can kind of bring it back up, but sometimes when you bring it back up, you don't bring it back up fully and introduce other things. So it's much better just to be kind of upfront, being like, hey, we tested this. The tool normally doesn't do this. I don't know what happened, but things went down. And
I feel like that happens for you a lot.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Nick. Sort of admitting mistakes, right, and being open about it. Sort of raise your hand and say, "Hey, I screwed up." Is step one towards being able to fix things, right? It's a huge thing. I hadn't thought about that. So first of all, I was like, I don't think I've made any mistakes, but I would I would say this. There are two things that I think differentiate what I'm going to call junior pen tester from senior pen tester. Junior pen tester knows 500 tools, but senior pen tester knows that 450 of them do not work. Right. And it was like senior pen tester has actually run those tools. And I think
there's definitely a tool overload in this space.
Yeah. And a lot of times it is the wrong thing and it doesn't work. And
there's been abandoned on GitHub 4 years ago.
And as I say, it's like if you just kind of look at it, you think, and it was like, oh, like I could just run that tool. And it's like, yeah, we've done that, right? It doesn't work. And here's why it doesn't work, right? And that's sort of the senior pen tester thing. The second thing I would say that's sort of the that differentiator between the junior and the senior, to me, is we tell everyone to be tenacious, right? Like never give up. You've got to keep going, right? Like never, like do not accept failure and try harder, right? Keep hacking, etc., right? And being tenacious and never giving up is part of our culture. And I think in a professional setting, it's very important to know when to give up, right? To know when to stop, right? There's a difference between failing on your way to success and failing on your way to just failing and wasting more time, right? Failing on your way to failure. And senior pen tester sort of knows that difference and knows sort of how to apply their time in an effective way. So I think I have done a little bit of both. I have failed on my way to failure and failed on my way to success. But experience is sort of knowing the difference between those two things.
That was a really good answer. I regret not going first. What would I say?
Another rookie mistake.
Yeah, don't go after PW crack. From a micro level, I would say like not testing payloads. And so wasting all the energy to do something and it fail because I didn't test it thoroughly enough. As I've gotten more mature in the process, not seeing what my stuff looks like to a defender would be my second like rookie thing. Is what does it look like on the wire? What does it look like in VirusTotal? How quickly can they just undo whatever it is I did? on the.
That's one thing that I learned at some point in working this field, is that I liked going back from defensive to offensive to defensive, because every time I would learn a new tool, on the offensive side, I'd be like, oh man, I can't wait to try this tool out. Never really thinking about exactly what you said, which was, how would you go about detecting this? And then, you work with someone like Arash, who is like, oh man, I would detect it this way, this way, this way. It's like, I need to jump over to the defensive side again, to learn those tools.
Totally agree. All my defensive time has made me a much better red teamer, understanding how people go after and figure out what I did. And then oh, well, let me just do it this way, because everybody doesn't.
I took a forensics class at one point early in my career, and I was a script kiddie probably at that point, and I took this forensics class and learned about all of the various artifacts you leave behind on your offensive work, and it was eye-opening to me. I was like, man, I was so sloppy. I was leaving things all over the system, and if I were to be, as operating as like an APT, there'd be no chance I'd be caught instantly by a skilled defensive operator.
Yeah, especially if you're a consultant, it's really difficult to get to interact with those internal and defensive tools. Like, you just have no idea what anyone else sees. Internal teams, you get a lot more flexibility to. Hopefully, you're partnering with those teams, and you can go actually see what they see. I
was gonna say, that's one of my favorite parts about being in the freelance space, is I get to see a lot of different environments from their defensive side, just learning what they see from my activity. And it's when you're in a role that's not like a consulting role, you see one environment, and I've had the opportunity of seeing a lot of environments in the freelance side, and you get to see that you might be at one point working with a very sophisticated defensive team, and then you move over the next week and you see an absolute train wreck, and you really have to change your tactics.
Yep.
But when you don't know what you're going into, you kind of have to assume that they're really good.
Yeah,
changes the way you operate.
From a macro level, I'd say it was a lack of empathy. So I would just assume people didn't do things because they were stupid or lazy. And instead of understanding,
that's definitely a rookie mistake.
Yeah, there was a reason that are things that are the way they are in a network you're looking at and giving advice to, and you probably don't have the context. So the fact that someone was just lazy and didn't do their job is 99% of the time not that reason that it is the way that it is.
It was probably a management decision, and they were kicking and screaming saying, don't do it that way.
Or it was unintentional, like, oh, well, we intend to fix this, and then just got busy.
To do.
Because they were lazy or intentionally malicious.
Yeah. That's a great answer. So, it's not so bad going after PW.
I think I pulled it out.
Yeah. So, what are some other jobs you've considered in the past? What brought you to this particular job? Are you happy where you are? Maybe not too introspective though. We only have so much time.
Okay. I've also done defensive work, which is when I moved from consulting red team to internal red teams. My transition was also being on the detection and response team. Invaluable. And I think if anybody can do that, they'll be much better off. Like I mentioned, I'm the manager now. And so I always thought I could do a better job than the other guy or girl, and now realize they had a lot to do. And I'm enjoying it because I'm kind of a master of my own destiny. And I'm really focusing on playing and exploring as the red team lead and trying to do things and what's the next thing that a red team should be doing, because there's not really a book on how to run an internal red team. So I think anyone that's doing that is having to write the book as they go.
Are you thinking of writing that book?
We'll see. I would like to demonstrate that I can do this without failing first. So
that's the question of whether someone will buy the book, not whether or not you should write it. Yeah. So
you still get credit as an author, even if it sits on the shelf.
Right. So, I mean, for me, my career, my trajectory has been sort of well planned out from the beginning. As I wanted to get into red teaming. We called it tiger teaming even back then, right? That was a thing. And, I sort of tried to do that all along, and with an eye towards eventually moving into management, moving up. So for me, that's been sort of that well carefully planned trajectory, I guess.
So I started out on the blue team side, well, sysadmin, because back in the early 2000s there wasn't red or blue; it was all just defense and defense.
Yeah, that's
depth.
definitely changed in the last probably decade.
But I always played a lot of StarCraft, and if I had failed OSCP in 2014 or 15, I probably would be in Korea as a StarCraft commentator. So that's kind of why, like, I continue
So
my
you
videos.
were destined for Twitch no matter what.
Well, no, I was on Justin TV, and before that, Ustream, and before that, Livestream. So I was part of like Justin TV. I think, the very first partnered stream within the first 5 or 6 back in my StarCraft days.
This I did not know. Are you happy you opted or you passed that exam and went for cybersecurity, or would you rather be a gamer at this point?
It depends on the day.
Although you've kind of found a way to merge the two, like
Yeah.
the gaming and the offensive security.
Yeah.
So the takeaway here is like invent your own job.
Yeah. So I went from blue, I got OSCP, did more of the red team stuff. I really didn't like it as much doing it full time because, kind of as like Chris pointed out, like, you always assume lazy or incompetence. And I think if you just do red team long enough, you become cynical really easy, and it's just not great because all your job is to do is point out failure, watch other people fail, etc. It's just not healthy to go straight from a job to, oh, I'm going to go to this company. Let's see how they screwed up today. Like,
I think that's pervasive in this industry, especially if you're not jumping back and forth from defensive to offensive and gaining the empathy that Chris talks about. Like exactly what you're saying. You get cynical and you start thinking everybody is an idiot and everyone's network is a disaster.
Yeah, you pop that shell, you do a little shell dance, and then realize you just made someone's life hell. So it goes both ways.
For me, I actually didn't start with a technical background. I went to school for advertising. I went to college for 6 years and I never graduated. I was very bad at it. And right after that, I decided one year I love computers. I did research on, some hacking stuff. I found OSCP and I got it that same year. And that's basically how it started for me.
So I'll ask myself the same question, which is, how I ended up there, what other jobs I considered. I definitely did the defensive, offensive, defensive, back and forth. And, as we talked about, I think it's been really valuable, gaining the empathy, gaining the experience, really realizing how bad my offensive OPSEC was when learning about more defensive analysis capabilities. And I guess I gravitated towards the freelance thing as a way of having a little bit more of my time back. I like it. I miss some of the aspects of having the 9 to 5, a little bit more stability. But I definitely value the perspectives into various different teams, tool sets, methodologies, how they work. One common thing that I do see across most of the networks I've taken a look at is a lack of segmentation. That's been a pervasive problem, but otherwise they're pretty unique. Every network I take a look at. So next question we're gonna chat about is advice for people starting out in this field. Something that maybe you wish you have heard. Something you'd like to pass on to people starting out, maybe people that are already in the field, that might learn from your mistakes. For me, I think I already mentioned this, so I'll just rehash it because I think it's important, and probably the reason that I'm here helping organize and contributing to the community events like BSidesNoVA. To me, the community is really important. I don't think that I would enjoy this field if it weren't for the people like those joining me today, the folks that are attending this conference, the people I get to learn from, interact with. I think the community is what makes this fun. So if I would say there's a piece of advice, it's get engaged with the community. Those are the people that you will be spending your life with. And I think this this community is worthwhile. I think it's got a good crew. So that's maybe it's a little bit too sunshine and rainbows, but I think that's given me a lot, both as like a family in this world, in this career, but also some people to learn from, and events like this are a big part of that.
I actually have two. So the first one is, it's okay to say you don't know in a job interview. You know, people mentioned this before, I think a little bit, but if you go into an interview and somebody says, explain to me how Kerberos works, it's okay to look them dead in the eye and say,
No one knows.
Yeah, exactly. So don't be afraid of I don't know. The goal is for you to be able to say I can learn instead. That's what I learned. The second piece of advice is, everybody thinks blue teams will detect everything, and will detect your really crazy, unique stuff that you think we won't detect it at all. It's really flipped. So it really does pay to learn blue team.
Yeah, the one thing I find about offensive security is it's a very asynchronous environment, and this is something I start out with by saying to all of the clients that I work with, and you guys probably have done the same. It's as a red teamer, I just have to find one crack in your defenses, and as a defender, you have to fill all of those cracks. You have to know every single part of your attack surface and fill every hole. I just have to find one. So it's asynchronous. I have an easier job. So don't feel bad. I mean, you got a hard job.
Mine probably would be, talk to as many people as you can, get involved in the community, like Kyle said, and just try to learn everything and apply that to what you have.
Is that possible?
It's not, but I mean, as long as you maintain like 5% of the community knowledge, you'll be extremely successful.
So how do you feel? I think that's a good, you raise a good question. And we are running low on time, but oh no, we got plenty of time.
A half hour left.
I thought we were on the hour. You raise a good point, and it's the learn everything, and it's something I've struggled with in my career. As there's web application testing, there's the whole domain of the Windows attack surface, Active Directory. Now there's cloud focused security, and you've also got multiple different clouds. There's just so many different fields that you can maybe specialize in. You can't know everything. Like, what are your thoughts on specialization?
Well, I guess rephrase it a little bit. Don't avoid a certain topic. Like, don't avoid blue team. In my red teams, like, my most successful pen testing is always whenever I find the red team on an organization. So there's been a few times where I just run like PEC or PowerShell's get injected threads, which makes Cobalt Strike highlight. I'm like, oh, on this pen test, I found the red team on these 3 boxes. The blue team kind of should go look at it. And but like, one of the topics I always avoided trying to learn this field was like binary exploitation, things like that, things that involve like C++. As soon as like a low-level programming language involved, I just went and tried to do something else. And
yeah, my eyes have glazed over at some of Arash's more in-depth reversing talks.
But if you just spend like a week or two, you'll probably be surprised how simple it is after reading like the MSDN documentation to see how Windows actually works. Oh, I make a call to this, and this is what it returns. And a lot of the exploits will start making sense after you start looking at those APIs. And it doesn't require like in-depth knowledge of any programming language. It just takes like a week or two.
Where could they learn about some of those things?
If you just go to like ipsec.rocks and type.
I can give everyone a chance to plug something today.
Yeah, so I think that the part of this is you should expect to be continuously learning. There is no like, oh, I learned how to red team and now I'm good enough and I got a job and we're done. That you're never done. This is not going to end. You need to be continuously learning, and you probably spend most of your day learning, practicing, etc. The amount of time on target is going to be fairly limited.
So this is going to be probably a question that might derail us a little bit,
right?
But what are your thoughts on burnout? I think that's a real complex issue for. I mean, Nick was just saying learn everything. I mentioned how many different areas of expertise you can have, and you're saying keep learning, keep learning, keep learning. I've always found this particular career field to be, it's important that you love to learn. Like that is one of your, core interests, learning new things all the time. But, what are your thoughts on burnout?
Right. So I know burnout is a real thing in the community, and the only poor suggestion I would have is do what you love. Right. If you're enjoying what you're doing, great. You're probably not going to burn out, or at least you have a higher tolerance for it. If you hate web app pen testing and you're doing web app pen testing, then you're going to have a bad time. You're not going to be able to get there. But I wanted to circle back to your point about the community. Look, part of what the community gets you is if I just tell you to go out and learn binary reverse engineering, like you're not going to know where to start. Like, and you're going to be overwhelmed. Again, you sit in on one of Arash's talks, and it's like what just happened, right? You're just so, it's just so overwhelming, right? But you need to do that on a regular basis, right? It's like sit in on that talk. You're probably not going to understand 100% of it, but you'll get a little bit. And the next time you come back to it, you'll have more context. And if you participate with the community and follow other people who are doing that type of thing, eventually you start to have more context and more availability. And now you're getting more out of that talk. And eventually, obviously, your goal is to be able to say, hey, look, let me try to run through that, right? And it's like, don't get frustrated that first time, right? Meet the people, stick with it, put yourself in that mindset of continuous learning and build context. And that's going to get you over that hump. And then, as I say, if you're not enjoying it or not having fun, you just got to stop, right? I love doing some pieces of this, and there are other pieces that, are not as much fun for me. I do the ones that I have enjoyed, that I have a good time with.
Yeah, community. If you're
steal it back.
No.
So Chris was in the community. Chris was one of the guys that got me started.
Yeah,
right?
I just
So it's
I want to plug his organization, Nova Hackers,
Yeah.
because I was talking about one of Arash's talks. Or Arash, I can't talk about exactly what he presented.
I guess you can.
Okay.
It's public.
But I want to plug. Everyone's got something to plug up here. And Chris kind of started this community effort. How many years ago, Chris?
Too many to count. Long time ago.
Nova Hackers, you started
2009.
You started Nova Hackers with Rob Fuller, Mubix, 2009. You're saying?
Somewhere around then.
I mean, that was really the origins of community efforts in this space, and it's still going. It's still active. We're meeting via Zoom now, but
yes,
it's still a wonderful event. We have groundbreaking talks. I think Arash, now he cleared it with us. He dropped I think it was a 1-day. Brand new CVE that he built an exploit for all night, spent all night building an exploit for. Yeah. And yeah. So you get to see bleeding edge stuff, and you can interact with these people. So I think community. So anyway,
community. What I would say with that was like community, because you can't do this alone. When you talk about burnout, you need that circle of trust. You need that circle of safety. You need someone psychological safety to be able to say I don't know, or have trusted friends. I'm actually really struggling with this. Go to the Nova Hackers, or go to your friends you've created. So yeah, don't lone wolf it. Like, you really do need some friends in the business. Other pieces of advice: it's probably not you, it's them. Yeah, because like what
was that about empathy you're saying?
Yeah. And why I say that is like, that's empathy for yourself, because we are dealers of challenging assumptions. And a lot of times we've not been invited by that person to challenge their assumptions or let them know things. So
can you say that one more time just to make sure we caught that?
Yeah, we are dealers of challenging assumptions.
I think that's a good, well put.
Haven't asked for that. So we want to make sure that we're encouraging them, that they want this kind of stuff. And a lot of times we show up Kool-Aid Man into their network and create work for them So to have empathy is like we weren't invited most of the time, or if we're not approaching that from the right perspective, we think it's us, when in reality, they just weren't ready for what we had to bring.
And you're challenging their assumptions, something that I think we all have a little bit of discomfort with having our assumptions, our closely held beliefs sometimes challenged like that.
And the last one would be remember to play and explore. You probably got into this because you're curious and you want to explore. Play and explore.
If you got into this field and you're not curious, you're screwed.
You're gonna have a rough time. Yeah, and then when you have like 16 million things to pick from to learn, whatever's exciting to you, and be okay to be like explore something for a bit and be like, I don't like this. Sometimes we feel like, oh, I've been this web app guy, I have to be that person forever. You are free to start pivoting and doing other things. Just remember that you can.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point when you were talking about community, and kind of brings us back to that burnout question. For me, when I get kind of overwhelmed, I get on new engagements, and I've never seen the environment before. I don't know anything about their network, their defenses, their applications, and it's overwhelming. It's like a Fortune 100 company, and it's a small team, and just having that community you can bounce ideas off of, say, hey, there's this application I've never heard of, I've never seen, I know nothing about. Do you have any ideas? Having that community, I think, alleviates that burnout, alleviates your need to know literally everything. And I think it's an opportunity to build friendships and relationships and learn more. So just having that community accessible and nurturing those relationships is really important.
Yeah, totally agree.
All right, so we're kind of at the end of the scripted part. So I'm going to open it up to question that I've been kind of interested in, and we might kind of touch on the same topics, but I know for me this has changed my life, but has working from home, I know it hasn't probably changed for you, but have any of the ramifications of this last year? Obviously, we're doing BSidesNoVA in a much different format this year. I've missed all my friends. I'm happy to be here and see some of them today. But how was your day to day? How's your life changed, and how have you worked to mitigate that and keep going in this kind of like new environment that hopefully won't be around forever?
Man, can I go last? I've been remote most of the time, and
can you tell us like maybe about some ways you've learned to cope with that and stay focused at home? Maybe those sorts of things.
I had gotten a really good plan because I had the house to myself all day, and then all of a sudden for COVID, I had 4 other people in the house with me, and it completely wrecked everything that I had set up the last couple of years.
I think we're all kind of struggling with something similar.
Well, now that you can get out a little, like, to me, it's important to go have human interaction, go have lunches with people, or just get outside and take walks. The drawback of being fully remote all the time is you don't get to make those personal connections. And I've seen in my own career that has stifled me and my growth in companies, being what is usually one of the few remote people.
So being remote, what keeps you in the DC metro area?
California is really expensive. We have family here too that they're kind of old, so can't really leave.
Yeah, so I think it's been a really interesting time. I mean, obviously, the community and personal interaction is a huge part of my life. It's definitely one of the things that I miss the most. I'm very anxious. I'm glad we're here. The small group that we have of presenters today. I'm looking forward to the conferences coming back, and the ability to again grab lunch, go to meetings, things like that, in-person Nova Hackers, things like that. So looking forward to all of that. It's a big deal to me.
But so you're living on hope.
Yeah, living on hope, adrenaline fueled. But there have also been advantages, right? So got a lot more personal time to work on things, to learn, to be a little bit more focused, a little bit less commuting, things like that. So there have been takeaways that I think, look, if you not for everyone all the time, but if you look at maybe society as a whole, or even our industry as a whole, there are going to be some permanent changes, right? There are people who are not going back to the office. There are offices that are not coming back. There are unproductive things that we were doing, that everyone realized, yeah, we don't need to do that anymore. I think there are going to be a lot of positive takeaways, and not everyone's going to have those, but I think on the margins, they're going to affect a lot of jobs. So, look, from my perspective, there are a lot of positives that came out of this as well. I got a ton of training time, completed 2 certifications just during the pandemic. Had just finished up another one, right
and a new job.
And the new job, yeah. So a lot of positives, and a lot of things that I was able to accomplish, but also now looking forward to getting back to some of the things that were sort of taken away from us, and that I really valued.
It would probably change a lot for me. Before I wasn't remote, so once the pandemic hit, I lost like all sense of structure, and my days used to be built around like the 9 to 5 type thing, but now my days are based around meeting times, which are a lot less than 9 to 5, and it's actually been more of a struggle to get my videos done working at home than it was being out of the house 12 hours a day, because I think like I'd be strapped on time, and what little time I had was a lot more precious, and I'd schedule out like 3 hours to do a video. But now like I have what feels like all the time in the world, so I procrastinate, I guess.
Yeah, for me, it's a double-edged sword. I was already full remote before COVID. I got hired to be full remote. It was my first full remote job ever, and I loved it until COVID hit. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh my God, I'm trapped here. I used to go out and hang out with people, and it becomes hard on you mentally, I think, for a little bit. I even considered paying a little extra and renting out an office monthly just so I could get out the house. But I think after a while I got used to it. I got settled in. You give your life a little structure, and working full remote can oftentimes be more productive in my experience.
Yeah, my day-to-day hadn't changed too much. I think what changed significantly is I look forward to going to these conferences pretty much monthly. In conference season, I mean, we start out with ShmooCon, one of my favorite cons of the year, closely followed usually by BSidesNoVA. And then I usually hit StockCon in Chicago. Maybe pick up another one. HushCon sometimes on there. Another B-Sides DC. I think that's October. We hit TourCon one year. Obviously, Hacker Summer Camp in August. And for me, it's just that steady stream of information. That's pretty much how I regulated my information flow. Is I would basically dedicate the time I was at cons to learning new stuff, getting new ideas, learning from my friends, and having a lot of social interaction. And it also, stayed, it kept that burnout at bay, because I enjoyed doing those things with my friends. So I think that's been the biggest kind of like change to my lifestyle and the way I work. And I would say I've learned a lot less over the last 14, 16 months, since we haven't had all these opportunities. And I quite frankly I don't know how you as attendees are doing this right now. I quite frankly can't stare at a screen on the hours that I'm not having to stare at a screen for work. I'd say the one thing that I am appreciative for that will probably stick around even after things get back a little bit more to normal is the communities I've built on platforms like Discord. I've got a bunch of hacker friends and Discords that, it's a place to bounce ideas off of. It's a little bit of therapy just to chat with other people like-minded, have a conversation when you don't have office, coworkers around, even if it's just sharing jokes and memes. So I think that's been the big change for me. But I'm definitely looking forward to having those conference seasons to kind of regulate that information flow. It helps track trends. It helps track the pulse of the industry. So changing topics. The next question we're going to talk about. Yeah.
We have 3 questions in the chat.
Okay.
We're going to kind of merge them together.
Okay.
It's really,
So we got a question from the audience that
Yes,
we're gonna field.
I am the audience.
All right. So I'm gonna pass you the mic.
It's not just me here. So we're going to kind of merge these together. First, we want to figure out, was it nature versus nurtured? Did you like cling to this industry? Did you have like, were you drawn to this, or was it something that you learned about and had to teach yourself? Did you have a mentor to help you get through? I know we're talking about community, but was there a specific mentor that kind of helped guide you? And lastly, would you pick the career track, or would you pick the consulting track to learn more if you have done both? I know that was
Those are great
jam-packed.
questions, really great questions, and I probably will ask you for a revisit to those. Let's see. It was nature versus nurture. How did you get into the community? And then I really like this one. How did I forget it? Career track versus consulting. Okay. So let's see. This is definitely a little bit of both for me. That's a cop-out answer, I know, but I have always been a curious person. I take apart every single thing I buy. I absolutely can't sleep at night until I figured out why something behaved the way it did. And so for me, that curiosity has been there forever. I definitely think that having the right people around you to nurture those things and say it's okay to break stuff, it's okay to take that computer that, speaking of my parents, like they buy me a $3,000 computer and we didn't have very much, and I'm tearing it apart, and my mom's like, that's cool. My dad's like, what are you doing? We just bought that. He's gonna break it. So having that permission to break things has been an important part of that. What got me into the community, it was actually Bob. Big thanks to Bob. I think he invited me into the community. He made sure I was introduced to people. He just made sure that I knew of events, and I think that was he changed my career track much in a big way for the better. So thanks Bob. And as far as so it's important to have someone like that. I think it's important to either be that for someone else or find that in the community. That's why I do these events, really. And the last question, consulting versus like a traditional career. I don't think you can do consulting without having the career first. I'm not going to say that I'm an expert in anything. Anybody that does, I would be wary of. I spent a number of years doing the much less interesting work, kind of paying my dues and learning a large subset of the information is not technical. It's interacting with coworkers, it's interacting with clients, it's interacting with management, it's understanding how to navigate the relationships that you have to navigate in every single aspect of the career. In order to do consulting, it's basically all those roles merged into one. You have to interface with clients, you have to do technical work, you have to interface with your team, and you have to do that in a way that keeps everyone happy. And quite frankly, that's hard to do sometimes because there are a lot of personalities involved. So I don't think that you should aim for one or the other. If your goal is consulting, I think you have to get your feet wet somewhere and probably go the classic route of learning from other people. That's a good way to start out. It's also hard to make, get business contracts if you're not constantly involved with other people. So that's my opinion on it. And I might be wrong. So I'd be interested to hear what other people have to say. So Arash?
Yeah, sure. For me, it was definitely nurture. When I decided I wanted to get into penetration testing and security and all this stuff, I sat down, I hacked my router first. That was really fun. Then what I did is I did my first Vulnhum box ever. I did the walkthrough, and when I got my first reverse shell with that little Python one-liner that everybody knows and loves, it was so exciting that when I did sign up for the OSCP, I did it 16 hours a day for about 4 months. I put more effort into passing the OSCP than I did into all 6 years of college.
6 years, okay.
Without a graduation.
Correct. I didn't even graduate. That's right. I actually got the OSCP. That's right. Yeah, yeah, I mean, that's another discussion, I suppose. Yeah, as far as what brought me to the community, I did a CTF one day. Both these guys showed up, and then this guy was like, hey, you should start hosting the BSidesNoVA CTF. And that was awesome. It really helped me out. I started hosting more CTFs. I started meeting more people. I have my own CTF team now.
Oh, can you plug your podcast too?
I only have one episode, but we have a podcast. We're trying to do some episodes. It's called AJ, You're Overthinking It. Our first episode is with Charles F. Hamilton. If you guys don't know who that is, that's Mr. Unicoder. He's the guy that made like SC Shell and all those really fun red team tools that you guys
who
know.
has donated one of his classes to the winner of the coding tournament, just as an aside.
Yeah, the Mr. Unicoder offensive coding class. It's amazing. He'll teach you tricks and techniques that bypass AV and EDR even actively today. This isn't just another old, here's how to do code, but it won't actually work class. As far as career versus consulting goes, I definitely agree with Kyle on this one. You got to have a career first before most people will trust you to do consulting.
So I guess how I got started, probably mainly nature. My brother's 7 years older than me, and he's also into tech, but he left when I was 11, when he was 18. So I didn't really have a long mentor in terms of tech because I was just getting into it. He did introduce me into Slackware when I was a kid, which was awesome, but he also introduced me into Windows ME, which was hell.
And for the millennials out there, what is Slackware?
Linux distro. Yeah. So, and then when I was in high school, I ran a blog. We just put out a new blog post Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We followed XKCD because we love the comic. They were mainly tech focused, like game hacking, some DDR. We had one on how to make ramen, which eventually landed on Attack of the Show, which was pretty cool. I didn't go to college. My plan was to go probably into the Air Force because I was too lazy to apply to college, and then I got a job as a sysadmin. So, I mean, that's pretty much my career. I have one big, the big differences.
And who pulled you into the community?
I just started attending ShmooCon. My brother attended ShmooCon, so I think ShmooCon 6 was my first one.
Another great community event. And as another aside, we should have Heidi coming up later today on the panel this afternoon, who runs ShmooCon, by the way.
And then probably, as Kyle said, the career. You may think it's important to go consulting where you can interact with all the companies, but if you just go in a career, you can do both sides of things and more find what you want to do.
I think going back to that, it's on the career side, you get to see more sides, you get to play more roles. And consulting, it's you have to do all those at once, and I think that's it's hard to do at once. 3 minutes left. All right.
Right. Yeah, so I totally agree with you on the career versus consulting thing. Consulting is something you probably do after your career or towards the end. On the nature versus nurture question, for me, it was more nature. I had an entire career doing marketing before I touched InfoSec at all. But as soon as I touched InfoSec, I was like, oh, this is it. I'm home. I met the community. I was like, hey, these are my people. And it was just sort of a very immediate thing for me. I didn't have a lot of people who sort of led me or showed me the way. To me, it was just, it was like I showed up and I was like, oh, this is the thing.
Same to career, mostly nature. I always want to know how things work and how to make things do things they're not supposed to do, which is really what we do.
And you built a community yourself. Did someone else get you into that?
I mean, it was the Austin Hackers Association that had the Nova Hacker model. But really, I just wanted to know everyone in this area when I moved here, and when I would go to OWASP and what was Bailick's thing. There were a few other groups. No one talked to anybody. They would come, listen, eat pizza, and leave. And I wanted to actually know people, and I'm shy.
All right.
we're
Well,
done.
thank you everyone for joining today. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. And coming up next, we have some more great panelists, but we've got to get out of here so that we can make room for them. Tune in another 5 minutes.